In chapter 331 of My Hero Academia, we learn about the limitations of New Order, and I'll walk through some of these are, but while Shigaraki made it sound like, yes, there is limitations on it, this is still an incredibly overpowered quirk, and seeing just what Star and Stripe does with it, making giant versions of herself, pretty much creating a lightning bolt out of lasers, is unbelievable, and it's so much fun to continue watching this fight go out. I still have no idea what the conclusion is going to be, but I do want to walk you through everything that happened in today's chapter. Before you jump into that, if you do enjoy this video or look for other My Hero Academia content, just head over to the Class 1A YouTube channel or subscribe down below to get updated on everything that we do. But let's jump right into chapter 331, which is titled United States of America. So it starts off with Star and Stripe recovering from the blast that ended the last chapter, not understanding what is going on with Shigaraki, but noticing that his hair has now grown, which, let's be honest, is never a good thing. Any changes to hair usually signifies some kind of power up, so with Star being on the other side of it, it is not going to be looking good for her. Shigaraki walks through basically understanding all the in-depth rules, or what he believes to be the rules of New Order that he's figured out only in the short fight so far, which are basically the following. I'm just going to summarize them instead of going through everything he said, because he did go through a lot and trying to hit the higher level picture. But first off, there's a limitation on how much the quirk can increase a physical body, or pretty much on living things. Anything that enhances a living or physical body, there's always going to be a limitation on that. But there's no limitation on how much a rule can incapacitate someone, as we saw with the rule that she put in last chapter, where if Shigaraki moves, he will die. So the other one is going to be New Order cannot be used on arbitrary things that she hasn't touched, but can be used in a lesser capacity with roundabout things. So pretty much saying that she couldn't just say anything within the air 50 meters in front of me moves, dies. It has to kind of be on a living thing, and the air she can kind of get around with by saying around me. This was the least clear of all the rules, but pretty much it has to be used on something that she can really physically touch or interact with, and it can't have very vague rules. It does need to be a little bit more specific. And when it is used on a living thing, the identity that Star calls out must be the same as what the person sees themselves as. So to go on with why it didn't work on Shigaraki, which we got the explanation in this chapter, is Shigaraki doesn't even know who he is right now, saying that he's some kind of combination of Shigaraki, All-For-One, and Shimura. So since what he sees himself as isn't the same as what Star and Stripe sees him as, or is identifying him as, it didn't line up, so the rule didn't get into a post. So Star and Stripe pretty much cannot impose a rule on what Shigaraki currently is, because I don't think he knows exactly what it is, so kind of a gray area, which gives Shigaraki huge advantage in this fight. But Star and Stripe does understand why it didn't work, saying that, oh, it must have some kind of quirk that stops him from not being able to breathe, which is so far out of the idea, but she continues to move on anyways, and tells one of the pilots to send word to her commander, as Shigaraki is no longer just a threat to Japan, but is now moving on to a threat to the whole world. And let's be honest, he has been for a while now, but I'm glad everyone else is starting to realize that. We do get a flashback to when Star and Stripe first met her pilots, saying that when we die, we all die together, bros, which is a little bit of foreshadowing to me. At least maybe some of the pilots are going to die, Star and Stripe's going to die, but I feel like that's a very interesting line to throw into in the middle of a fight. I know it's kind of like, oh, the camaraderie of where they kind of came from, but to me, that just screams foreshadowing, especially in a fight of where we know Shigaraki's probably not going to die, so either Star and Stripe dies or she gets away is really the two best outcomes for her. Maybe Shigaraki's injured and they get more time, but even that seems unlikely with how powerful he is right now. So while she is holding off, waiting to hear back from the commander, she forms the air around her into her own shape 1,000 times bigger. And Shigaraki isn't exactly able to see this, but he knows something's about to come, and then she puts out a giant punch, sending him flying across the sky, and then comes down with two clamping hands and does the same thing and starts to crush him. But then she does use a final move where she has all the pilots fire the laser at her again, and combines using this giant form into one huge laser, and then crushes that into Shigaraki. She knows that all this is not going to be enough to kill him, but hopefully just enough to keep him pinned down. We finally do get to hear back from her commander, saying that this is basically going to cost her everything, not just her license, but so much more, he says, but that Japan has cleared the strike, and that incoming are a bunch of missiles called Tiamat, and he says to make sure that every single one hits, and these are intercontinental missiles, obviously coming all the way from the United States right now. But I don't know if these are quite nuclear. I don't know what's going on with these, but the fact that the United States is just sending missiles to deal with another solution doesn't seem that far out of reach. And a great end of the chapter, showing that we're at least going to get one more chapter of the Star and Stripe versus Shigaraki fight, which really does seem like it favors Star and Stripe so much with how she's using this giant form now, the lasers, but Shigaraki's regeneration just pretty much negates everything that she does. In a sense, she can't use one of the rules that just instantly kills them basically much. That is not setting up to be a good sign for Star and Stripe coming out of this. We obviously do know also that the Japan heroes are aware that she's in the airspace. Obviously, all this is taking place over minutes, so it may take time for them to actually get there, but I feel that at the end of the next chapter, that the missiles more than likely are not going to work. And if they do work, they're into Shigaraki and he'll just escape. Star and Stripe either dies or the the Japanese heroes show up right in time to save her before she does die. I think those are the three outcomes of this fight. Shigaraki dying is not one of those. I think some people would love to kind of tease that or use it as a clickbait title, but let's be honest here. Shigaraki is the final big bad, so anything that involves him being seriously injured or hampered for future fights doesn't make sense. All I know is I do not want Shigaraki to get New Order. He already has a good understanding of how the quirk works, and obviously giving it to someone already so powerful is just going to be game over for the heroes, it feels like. But chapter 331, while there are some amazing moments, some of the animation, not the animation, I get the drawings here for Star and Stripe's moves were absolutely amazing. It kind of felt like more of a setup chapter going into what's going to be the conclusion with these missiles coming, even though this was such a cool moment. Fight scenes, even Star and Stripes knows that everything she did in this chapter is more or less just to hold him off. It didn't even give her really any ground moving forward, so it was just kind of a stalemate for this entire chapter, even though we got a really cool explanation of how her quirk works and got to see some cool applications of it during this chapter. But I'll be back next week to break down everything that happened in chapter 332, which will more than likely be the conclusion of the Star and Stripe versus Shigaraki fight, which has been amazing so far. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys later.